Every New Year's Day, in our Flushing apartment, was a parade of flavors. The herbal broth of chicken soup, garlic sizzling in oil, ginger rubbed into roasted duck, and the faint fragrance of oolong tea that my mother, Lu Fong Fong for short, always brewed, as if it were a blessing. My father, Zhang Wei, carefully hung a new pair of red couplets on the doorframe, murmuring Nian Nian Yo Yu. I stood beside my mother stacking rice cakes, sneaking glances at the clock, counting down to the moment the air would change. Evan arrived exactly on time, like every small-town American who grew up where church bells and clocks rang in sync. He stood at the door with a bouquet of lilies, blue shirt crisp, eyes a little shy as he tiptoed into our two-bedroom apartment. Red lantern lights shimmered above him, scattering his shadow into fragments, as if Evan himself was an unanswered question. My mother looked at the bouquet, smiled politely. My father pulled out a chair, set down an extra bowl and chopsticks. They had met Evan before, once at a tea shop, once at a community film screening where I worked. But New Year's dinner was different. This was sacred ground. Blessings lay across the table like red envelopes, bright, heavy, and unspoken. I waited until the steamed fish was set down, the head pointed toward my father, the head of the household, then placed a small velvet box between the sunflower seeds and candied lotus roots. I have something to say, I said in Mandarin, then switched to English for Evan. We are engaged. Evan was not clumsy. He would practice this line for a week. We are engaged, he repeated, steady voice but trembling hand on my thigh. A hush dropped like a pinch of salt. My mother looked at the box, then me, then Evan, then the black and white photograph of my grandparents on the cabinet, two solemn faces, deep eyes like wells. My father set down his chopsticks. White, my mother said in her odd mix of Mandarin and the Vietnamese words our neighbors had taught her. Are you sure, Malin? I am sure, I said. I love him. My father shook his head, not at Evan, but at that English word love, flimsy as a paper kite in the wind. In our house, marriage was a boat, love the wind. A good wind sped the boat forward. A storm meant you lowered the sail. There are things beyond feelings, my father said. There is family. There is face. I heard the tea kettle whistling, firecrackers popping in the street, and my own heart beating. I had prepared for this. I would written a list in bold ink in my notebook. Evan respects culture. Evan eats with chopsticks. Evan shops with Mom at the Chinese market. Evan watched the farewell and cried. But lists dissolve in silence. I opened the box. The ring sparkled like a coin in a red envelope. My mother flinched from the light. When my father asked, June, I said, we want a small ceremony in the park, then a banquet at a dim sum restaurant. A Chinese restaurant, my mother asked, surprised, not comforted. Yes, I said. I want the tea ceremony, the cheap how everything. She turned to Evan. Religion? She asked in stiff English. No, madam, Evan said. I grew up in church, but I do not attend anymore. I respect everyone. My mother pressed her lips. My father poured tea, hand steady. If you had studied medicine, he muttered, no one would ask so many questions. That sentence pulled me back to years of SAT prep, MCAT drills crumpled into trash, Columbia's pre-med brochures taped to my wall, and sophomore year when I switched to media arts and hid it from them for 3 months. Evan squeezed my hand. My mother touched the ring for 1 second, then withdrew. Eat, she said. Cold food is not good. Dinner floated forward, like a boat against the current. I knew the storm was beneath the surface. My father came to America in 1996 through JFK Airport in the rain, sweater soaked with jet fuel mist. Back in Shanghai, he was a factory technician. In Flushing, he worked as a busboy, then opened a tiny noodle shop next to Mr. Zhao's laundromat. My mother arrived in 1998 with a notebook of recipes and a bundle of letters. She spoke English like reciting poetry, carefully chosen words, pauses learned from church volunteers. Immigrant children were set against a white wall the imagined doctor's coat, so their future would not stain. Medicine, law, engineering. Success was measured in degrees framed on the wall, or at least a graduation photo in cap and gown. But I loved light, the way it slid over skin, glittered on eyelashes, spilled into open hands. At 14, I borrowed the school's camcorder and never let it go. I saw stories in an old woman picking bok choy at the market, in the shadow of a cat darting across a roof. I did not want a white coat. I wanted a black box of camera to capture light. When I told my parents I would switch majors, my mother said nothing, only cooked chicken porridge and placed a bowl in front of me. My father sighed. You think people pay for light? Yes, I said. They pay to see their lives on a screen. To remember. He fell silent. From then on, whenever I brought home a film poster, he only nodded like nodding at a seashell a child brought back from the beach, pretty but useless. I worked at a community film center in Brooklyn teaching immigrant kids how to edit, applying for grants, producing shorts for small festivals. I paid rent, sent a little home, helped at the noodles shop when busy. I was not poor, but I was not rich either. To my father, poverty and wealth were not just money. They were order. White coats had order. Lenses had wind. Evan grew up near Dayton, Ohio, where winters stretched like church hymns and summers smelled of fresh-cut grass. His father was a mechanic, his mother a first-grade teacher. He came to New York to study data science, then switched to UX design, 2 words my mother thought meant drawing on phones. We met at an outdoor screening I organized. That night, my student's documentary about Rose's fruit stand played on the screen. Evan said he would never seen his story so close. I said I would never seen a white guy who listened without taking over. Loving someone, people say, means loving their family too. With Evan, it meant watching him learn to love mine. He bowed at the altar to my ancestors. He remembered not to stick chopsticks upright in rice. He learned phrases in Mandarin to greet my parents' friends. He carried grocery bags for my mother. He poured tea with 2 hands. And he knew when to stay silent. But love, if only learned, feels like a test. My mother treated every encounter like an exam. She watched how Evan set his shoes, how he smiled, how he said thank you in English, then corrected to shishya. Still, she sensed a gap, an unbridgeable missing route. He does not understand, Malin, she told me as I washed dishes. It is not about chopsticks or greetings. It is the root. He does not have roots here. I do not have roots in Dayton either, I snapped. But I can still plant a tree there. Her eyes darkened. And what water will your tree drink? In the small apartment I shared with Camila, a Mexican girl from El Paso, the air was always scented with cilantro and roasted corn. Camila studied nursing. Her mother cooked in a taco shop. Camila laughed bright and sweet, like churros crackling in sugar. My mom wanted me to be a doctor too, she often said. But doctors heal people. Nurses heal people. Artists heal people to heal their spirits. She poured me a glass of horchata. If you need a bridesmaid who can rock a red sash, call me. Kwame, my co-worker at the center, came from Ghana. His mother had brought a jar of homeland soil when they immigrated, sprinkling a pinch into a potted plant each year. She said it was to keep the roots from forgetting home. Kwame laughed. Me, I plant seeds now. My roots belong to the future. He looked at me seriously. You know, people are not upset because you chose Evan. They are hurting because you chose yourself. I stayed quiet. He was right. But knowing that did not make the hurt any softer. The trip to Ohio felt like stepping into an old photo album. Green lawns, white houses with porch swings, maple trees standing like guards. Evan's mother set pies on the table and hugged me warmly. "We are so happy to have you here, sweetheart." She smelled of flour and vanilla. Evan's father shook my hand firmly. "You two make a good team," he said. Dinner was barbecue and salad. His father asked about my work. I told him about the film center, the kids editing their first shorts, my dream of making a film about the little shops in Flushing, where each dish was a map of memory. He nodded. "Hard work," he said. "My respect." But when I mentioned turning down a corporate data analyst job to stay at the center, I caught the flicker of concern in his eyes, not contempt, but recognition of risk. He would been a mechanic his whole life. Risk was something you endured, not pursued. As dessert came, Evan's mother casually said, "We thought you might have a church wedding. Our pastor is lovely, very inclusive." Evan smiled gently. "We were thinking of a tea ceremony in the morning and a park ceremony later. No church, Mom." His tone was soft but firm. His mother blinked, then nodded. "Of course. Whatever makes you happy." Driving back that night, Evan held my hand. "I know both sides have things they want to hold on to," he said. "I do too. But the one thing I want to hold most is you." I leaned my head on his shoulder. But in my mind, I saw my mother's face when she heard the word engaged. 2 weeks after Ohio, my father collapsed in the kitchen. Not dramatically, he simply sat down, knife still in his hand, and could not get up. The doctor said he was exhausted, blood pressure dangerously high. I offered to take shifts at the noodle shop. My mother waved me off. "Go to work. I will handle it." But her hands trembled on the ladle. The shop sat between a nail salon and a phone store. On cold days, steam fogged the glass. Children drew circles with their fingers. I relearned kneading dough from my mother: press, fold, turn the rhythm like an old song. Customers came in with weary faces, left with lips pink from hot broth. Taxi drivers, piano students, confused Americans who did not know what to order. I helped them, and they laughed in thanks. Each bowl of noodles felt like a thread stitching someone's hometown to this city. One morning, 2 men in dark coats entered, introducing themselves as building representatives. The landlord planned to raise the rent. A lot. Otherwise, we would have to leave in 3 months. "We have been here 20 years, my mother said, smiling politely, pouring tea. "Always on time with rent, never late. Gentlemen, the market has changed one cutter off. Another restaurant wants the space." When they left, my mother set her teacup down, so gently it barely made a sound. "Hard," she said. "Just one word." "I will find a lawyer," I told her. "I will ask the community." That night, I opened my laptop and drafted a proposal for a documentary on the noodle shop. Interviews with longtime customers, footage of my mother kneading, the 20-year story of survival in a city that kept shedding its skin. I emailed small arts foundations for support. I thought of my father's eyes in the hospital, not afraid of death, but of losing the place that bore his name. Evan came by with a grocery bag. "I talked to a lawyer," he said. "They think we can negotiate. The old contract has renewal clauses." He unpacked my favorite ribs, worried I had not eaten. I was grateful and strangely pained. I wanted my parents to see this, that Evan was not just the white man eating noodles. He was at the counter, wiping tables, learning to shout orders in broken Mandarin. 2 bowls, no cilantro. But deep down I knew, like knowing noodles rise when cooked, that for my mother, it still was not enough. My mother handed me an old wooden box. "Read," she said. Inside were yellowed letters, written in my grandmother's slanted Chinese script from the 1980s. "Learn English," one letter said. "Don't let others count money for you." Another, "I knitted you a sweater." Is New York cold? And another, daughter, if you have a daughter, let her study what she wants, but teach her to remember home. My mother sat across from me, teacup in her hands. The day I left, she said. My mother did not cry. She just said, if you leave, then leave fully. Don't stand halfway, across the river, and complain of wetness. I thought I could stand in the middle and stay dry. But the water still splashes. Why do you oppose Evan? I asked. If Grandma said that. She smiled faintly, tired. Because I know how strong the current is. I am afraid you will be swept away, afraid you will forget your language. This tea, these letters. Her hand trembled as she touched mine. And I fear the eyes of people who look at you with him. I am not afraid of them. I am angry. But anger builds a wall. Your wall hurts me, I whispered. Yes, she said. And behind the wall, I can't see you either. I filmed in the mornings before the shop, got busy sunlight pouring through the windows, turning floating flour into specks of salt. My camera caught my mother's hands kneading, my father's weary eyes, the chopsticks darkened with years of use. I interviewed old customers, a taxi driver who ate here his first day in New York, a teacher who ate here through her pregnancy. I even filmed Evan, but only kept the sound of his laughter, his clattering dishes, his awkward Mandarin at the counter. I titled the film Cold Chrysanthemum Tea, in July, the month the shop first opened, the drink my mother always sipped even in summer heat. I did not expect much when I submitted it to a small Queen's festival, but it was accepted. That night, the tiny theater smelled of popcorn. My mother wore a gray sweater, my father a loose blue shirt. Evan sat beside me, warm hand in mine. When my mother's kneading hands filled the screen, the audience went silent, as if coughing might break the dough. When the final text appeared, Zhang Wei Noodle Shop, 1999, someone clapped. Then everyone did. After the screening, a Latina girl stood up, eyes red. Thank you, she said. It made me miss my mom's tamales. A young black man added, my grandpa has a barber shop in Jamaica. I am gonna film him. An elderly Chinese woman leaned over to my mother, voice trembling. Your child makes me feel home. My mother turned to me. For the first time, I saw her eyes soften, like noodles just reaching tenderness. A community lawyer helped us negotiate. The landlord agreed to a smaller increase, 3 more years on the lease, with some repairs. My father exhaled like a man pulled from a current. My mother peeled faded newspaper off the shop windows, polished the glass until it shone. That night we celebrated with roast duck. My mother tucked 3 red coins beneath the platter, part joke, part blessing. Evan hugged her, congratulating. She did not pull away. She patted his back lightly, like a boy too big for his age. Thank you, she said in clear English. That night, she brought out my grandmother's cheapao. Do you want to wear this for the tea ceremony? I touched the deep red silk, the golden embroidery, the stitches like music. I nodded, throat tight. And the park ceremony, she asked, voice neutral. Simple, I said. A garland, a few songs, our vows. She nodded, thoughtful. Don't let the wind blow out the candles, she said. Get covers. I laughed through tears. Small, practical details, candle covers, were her way of saying yes, without saying yes. One afternoon, my father said, you do not need a doctor's coat to be a person. He was sitting on the wooden chair outside the shop, tea in hand, watching the street. Your mother likes that white coat because people see it and stop asking questions. But if you wear another coat, people will ask, can you bear that? I thought about the gatherings where people asked, what do your parents think about you not being a doctor? The raised brows, the whispered doubts. I can, I said. I have a camera to record their questions. He chuckled, half a joke, half pride. If anyone asks too much, hand them a bowl of noodles. They will shut up. Sunday morning sunlight glinted on the shop windows. The scent of red bean buns drifted in the air. I wore my grandmother's cheap how, hair pin high, my mother's green jade bracelet cool on my wrist like a promise. Evan wore a red brocade dye that Camila and Kwame had helped him order from Mott Street. He looked a little funny, but he smiled with quiet confidence as if choosing to stand fully inside this picture. My parents sat in the center chairs. We knelt, holding out the tea tray. My voice trembled in Mandarin, respectfully offering tea to father and mother. Evan repeated the words, imperfect but steady. My mother accepted the cup, eyes shining, veins on her dough, kneading hands raised like rivers. She sipped and nodded. You are my daughter, she said. The ring does not come before or after that. My father drank, coughed lightly, then pulled a red envelope from his shirt pocket. No words are as solid as money, he joked, making everyone laugh. But my words are, wherever you go, go together. If you are tired, stop. If you are hungry, come home for noodles. Evan bowed deeply, taking the envelope with both hands. Thank you, Ba, he said. For the first time, he called him Ba. Neighbors lined up afterward for buns and congratulations. Camila waved like crazy from outside. Kwame hugged me and said, Come to Ghana one day. I will serve you hibiscus tea. I smiled, standing on a new bridge with strong pillars. The outdoor ceremony was held in a corner of Prospect Park, under a wide oak tree, a simple white garland hanging from a branch. Evan's mother sat in the front row, crying as soon as the music began. His father handed her a handkerchief, eyes damp too. My friends from the film center brought cameras, but set them far away. I wanted this moment mostly lens-free. Camila read a poem by Worcestershire. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. My mother did not understand all the English, but when I whispered the meaning into her ear, she squeezed my hand tightly. Evan read his vows. I promise to learn your language, not only Mandarin or the Vietnamese words your neighbors taught your mother, but the language of looks, silences, and seasons. I read mine. I promise to keep your home inside me, not only Ohio, but the smell of fresh cut grass, the evenings of church hymns, the taste of pie. The breeze was gentle. The candles did not go out. I had brought the covers. When the ceremony ended, the children of our customers, Chinese, Latino, Black, ran around laughing like tiny bells. I looked at my mother. She smiled, tired but relieved. Go change your clothes, she said. This afternoon we still have dim sum. Don't let the guests starve. The dim sum restaurant in Elmhurst was packed. Char siu buns rolled by on carts. Shrimp dumplings gleamed like tiny moons. Chicken feet braised with peanuts filled the air with spice. At every table, laughter wove together like a net. Evan's mother tried chicken feet. She laughed and said, interesting, then asked for more. Evan's father raised his glass. To our children, he said, may their home be larger than any map can show. He was not a poet, but the words spread like a tablecloth, wide and steady. My mother handed me a small box. Inside was a photo of my grandparents sitting in front of their old house, eyes warm though unsmiling. Your grandmother wanted you not to fear the water, she said. I hugged her. She felt smaller than I would imagined. I thought of the letters, the walls she had built for safety. I whispered, I won't forget home. Don't just say it, she scolded gently. Come back for noodles often. After the wedding, I stayed at the film center, but the noodle shop documentary opened doors. A community TV station wanted to air it. A foundation invited me to apply for a bigger project on immigrant shops across the city, Jamaica, Sunset Park, Jackson Heights. The path ahead was not straight, but it had markers now: people, flavors, hands. Evan moved his desk closer to the shop so he could stop by at lunch to help. He learned more Mandarin, practicing tones. My father said one day Evan would hold the keys when he was too tired. My mother said he needed to learn the difference between cilantro and dill. Evan laughed, repeating names of herbs like a child learning the alphabet. Camila started shifts at the hospital, dark circles under her eyes but still smiling. Kwame secured funding to make a film about his grandfather's barbershop. We dreamed of creating a series together, small houses, each one its own universe. One October evening, when maple leaves turned red like opened red envelopes, I got a call from my old high school. My English teacher invited me back to speak to students about filmmaking. I stood on a small stage, looking out at faces of every shade: Asian, Latino, Black, white, and told the story of the noodle shop, the tea ceremony, the wall, and the bridge. I told a newly arrived Chinese girl that her path was not only between a white coat and a black camera, it was about learning to listen. I told a Honduran boy that his voice, his family's voice, belonged on screen too. Afterward, a shy girl came up, script sketches in her hands. "Miss," she said, embarrassed, "my parents want me to study accounting. But I want to write. What should I do?" I thought of my mother, my father, Evan, the audience clapping as my mother kneaded dough on screen. I said, "Write, and eat dinner with your parents more often. Bring them into your story." That Christmas, we went to Ohio. Snow covered the ground like a blank sheet of paper. Evan's mother hung red stockings. His father pulled me into the yard, showing me how to light small fireworks. I called my parents. My mother asked, "Is it cold there?" "Yes," I said, "but the house is warm." "Wear your hat," she replied. I laughed. "I will." Evan led me to the field where he used to play soccer. "Hear that?" he asked. I listened. The wind rushed through the trees, a long whisper. "I hear it," I said. "It sounds like water." "Maybe," he said. "But we have a boat." The next summer, on the shop's anniversary, we hosted a screening outside. A white sheet hung on the storefront, a projector casting light across bowls of noodles and familiar faces. My mother brewed cold chrysanthemum tea, as always, this time with slices of orange. My father carried peanuts. Camila brought flan. Kwame hibiscus juice, red as a blessing. Evan adjusted the projector. On screen, the shop shimmered on the glass, reflecting back into the bowls, into the eyes of the audience. I sat beside my mother. She watched herself kneading dough, sweat and wrinkles enlarged. "You have kept the home," she whispered. It was not praise, but acknowledgement. "And you followed me," I whispered back. She smiled. "Yes, but row slower sometimes, so I do not fall behind." I squeezed her hand, the jade bracelet cool against my skin. Above us, the city sky showed no stars, only lights. Lights are also a kind of sky. I thought of my film students, the girl with the script sketches, the tiny shops across the borough's tamales, hibiscus, pho, pizza, small houses stitched together into one living city. I remember my grandmother's letter. "If you have a daughter, let her study what she wants, but teach her to remember home." I did not yet have a daughter, but I had a film, a teacup, a jade bracelet, a husband who said "xie," and a mother who now said "thank you." And for tonight, that was enough. Epilogue, from the mother's view. When Malin brought Evan home on Lunar New Year's Day, I set the oolong pot on the stove like always. The scent calmed me, but my hands trembled. I would heard much about him, kind, polite, bowing at the altar, pouring tea, using chopsticks. Kindness is good, but kindness alone can't block the strongest winds. I was once a girl unafraid of wind. The day I left Shanghai, I carried my mother's letters ink as thin as noodles, urging me. Wherever you go, there's always a stove and a kettle. If you know how to boil water, you will have tea. In New York, I learned English like listening to rain. Not every word, but the rhythm. I cooked in other people's kitchens, then opened a shop with my husband. For 20 years, my hands remembered dough more than pen. When Malin said engaged, that English love fell into my teacup like a stone. Ripples touched the photo of ancestors, touched my mother's voice in my mind. If you leave, then leave fully. Don't stand halfway in the river. I looked at the young man not hiding, not running. But in this house, love was wind, marriage the boat. That night, I cooked chicken porridge. My daughter ate little, eyes far away. I wanted to say do not rush, but new words would be thorns. Silence was my wall. Behind the wall, I thought I was safe. But behind the wall, I could not see my child. At the Queen's film screening, I saw myself on the screen, hands kneading dough, sweat dripping, wrinkles carved into skin. I had never seen myself that large. Usually the mirror showed only gray hair, tired eyes. But here, I saw work turned into story. People clapped. A Latina girl cried about her mother's tamales. A young black man spoke of his grandfather's barbershop. An old Chinese woman whispered, "Your child makes me feel home." A crack opened in my wall. Wind seeped in, but I was not cold. At the tea ceremony, my daughter knelt in my mother's cheapao, jade on her wrist, offering tea. "You are my daughter," I said, voice breaking. Evan bowed, calling my husband Ba. A tiny word that traveled far past Ohio's churches and barbecues, to our noodle shop in Queens. Tea is bitter first, sweet later. Marriage too, perhaps. At the banquet, Evan's mother ate chicken feet. She said, "Interesting." I gave her more. We did not share a language, but verbs were enough. Pass, pour, laugh. Sometimes a meal itself is the bridge. I gave Malin the old photo. "Your grandmother wanted you not to fear water," I said. She leaned on me. I tilted. No longer a wall, but something she could rest against. I still wake early. Boil water. Drop chrysanthemums. Watch petals bloom. Evan asks, "What is that smell?" July, I tell him. He scribbles Chinese words in a notebook. I correct him patiently. I never thought I would teach a white son-in-law to say garlic chives. Life is strange. What we think is wall may be bridge. What we think is bridge may be wall. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent. "Mother, I am less afraid of wind now. I still build walls, but I leave a door. I pour tea for someone who does not speak my language, and he bows with both hands. My daughter chose a camera instead of a white coat, but she heals stories. Maybe that is also a doctor." I folded the letter, placed it in the wooden box. Tomorrow, I will wake early, boil water, drop flowers. The stove is still here. The wall is still here. But now there is a bridge, and I know how to cross.